Hello and welcome to Dave's Delightful Dishes. As always, I'm Dave, and it is such a delight to have you here visiting me today in my kitchen. And today I'm doing a recipe that has been requested over and over again, and believe me, I like it too. So I'm really happy that I'm going to get to show this to you today. It's a classic dish, easy to make. It's great for wintertime, great for a cold day, and it is chicken and dumplings. Let's check it out. So there's many ways to cook chicken and dumplings as there are opinions in any given room. But this is the way that I make it. So check out these ingredients. And I like to start by taking the chicken and making a stock with water. But if you want to save some time, there's no reason why you couldn't use prepackaged chicken stock, canned or boxes or however you get it, and using like a pre-cooked rotisserie chicken or chicken that you've pre-cooked anyway ahead of time. So if you want to take that shortcut rather than making stock like I'm doing, cut to this timestamp down here and you can catch up with us for the actually making of the chicken and dumplings as part of the stew. But for the rest of us, let's head over to the oven. Okay, I had a camera mishap, so the chicken has already gone in, but this is 2 to 3 pounds. In this case, it's 3 or 4 chicken thighs. These are boneless, skinless, because I got a really extra good deal at the store on those in bulk. But you can use bone-in, skin-in. And I'm going to add a couple things to this to bump the flavor up since I don't have the skin and the bones. So I'm trying to get at least 5 quarts of stock when I'm done. So I've got this much water in right now, and once I get the rest of these boiling ingredients in, then from there I'll top up so I can maximize my amount of stock. And if I have any left over, I'll use it for something else. So I have 2 celery stalks, which I'm just breaking in half because I just want their flavor. And the ones with the leaves are the best. If you can get the center, that's the best thing of all. And I've got a couple of baby carrots. We'll be using more of these later in the actual recipe, but I want to get some flavor out through them. And then I have 2 bay leaves. And I put in 2 tablespoons of salt. And then I have a half a teaspoon, it's a little bit less than half a teaspoon of turmeric. And this gives a certain flavor that when I think of stock, I think of this. You can skip this part if you don't like to have your stuff really yellow. But now we're going to get this to a boil. And once it boils, I'll set it back to simmer. And we're going to just let it simmer out for an hour to an hour and a half. So I'll be back with you when there's something to see. Okay, so we're at a simmer, and I'm lowering it down to kind of like medium-low heat. And you can see the scum that you got on top of here. That you got to skim off. That's fat. And I mean, you ideally don't want to have that with it. So you don't have to do it the whole time, but as you get a pile, just come in and skim it off. I've got this neat little tool, but a spoon works just as well. But this is now going to simmer for 60 minutes to 90 minutes. We're looking for the chicken to be all the way done and to have this looking very much like a thick stock rather than just water. All right, we're about an hour in, and I was looking at this, and I said, oh, I forgot to add, I need some onion to go in here, too, for the flavor. This is different than what we're going to have in the actual meal. This is just building the stock right now. Luckily, I've still got an hour of cook time left, so I'm throwing just a medium-sized onion, split in half, and let that give its flavor to the mix as well. Okay, it's been an hour and 15 minutes, and this is now looking good and ready. The chicken is definitely done. And the stock is looking like stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the chicken breasts out. And they are very tender. Or chicken thighs is what I meant. And then all these vegetables, I can turn my pot off now. All these vegetables have done their job. So we're going to get all this out, and there's probably going to be some little bits of chicken that we'll farm out for later. But the rest of this, we're just going to get rid of and keep the stock. Because these vegetables and herbs here have You know, they've given up the ghost. They've given their all to the stock. Okay, so now we got to let this cool for a little while. And so that'll sit on the stovetop and cool. And then we're going to take our chicken over to the cutting board and dice it. And then we'll be ready to go and start making our dumplings. Okay, so we've switched to a Dutch oven, which I'm now going to put on high heat for the moment. And I have, still warm, but no longer boiling hot, although we'll be back that way pretty quick, 6 cups of the stock we made. And for those of you who are just joining us, who are on your way back from the store with the chicken stock that's been pre-packaged and the pre-cooked chicken, you're gonna use 6 cups of chicken stock, whether you made it yourself or whether someone else made it for you. That goes in. Our vegetables go in which case it's new potatoes that I've quartered. I use baby carrots just for convenience, so I don't have to peel them. Cut into small pieces like that. A medium onion that I've put into eighths, and then 2 ribs of celery that have been cut down to little chunks. And then we have our chicken, which I've chopped up. Again, that's whatever kind of, you can use breast meat. I use thigh meat. I prefer thigh meat for this kind of stuff, but whatever you got. And we got to bring this to a boil. But I need to add pepper, basil, and thyme. And I need a bay leaf. Do you need a bay leaf? Hard to say. I always have used one, so I don't want to change that now. Now, there's salt in the stock, and there's going to be some salt in the dumplings. So, and there's a lot of flavor in the vegetables, so I don't think we need to add too much more salt. But if before, when we've made the stew and before we add the dumplings, you want to give it a taste. And if you think it needs something, you can add more salt or you can add more pepper or anything just to season it to your taste. But this now has to come to a boil. Okay, so as you can see, we've got it up to a simmer. I brought it to a boil, and now I'm putting it to medium-low. And we're going to give it a nice little stir. And then this is going to get covered. And I'm going to let that cook for 20 to 25 minutes. And let the vegetables start softening up. And while that's happening, I'm going to start preparing the dumplings. Let's head over and check it out. Okay, so I have 1.5 cups of flour. I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We need to just kind of mix that together to combine real quick. And then I have 1/2 cup of chopped parsley, which is going to go in a second. I want to put this butter in. I've got 3 tablespoons of butter, which I've kind of cut up into smaller pieces. You can use margarine as well. And I'm just going to called cutting them in. I'm just going between 2 knives. Not the most exciting of things. We're going to get this together until the stuff becomes a little bit more crumbly. All right, so you see that butter's been incorporated. It's just little crumbly bits in there. So now I'm going to add in that 1/2 cup of chopped parsley. Just give it a quick stir together. And then I have 3/4 cup of milk. Pour that in. And now we got to mix. And this will come together as kind of a dough, but it's not if you can, you might need to add a little extra milk if it's too dry today, and it's a very dry day today inside my house. But I want this to have some body behind it. I don't want this to be like a wet dough. And I'm just going to keep working this, and then once this is fully come together, we got to let it just sit while we wait that 25 minutes for the stew to be ready to incorporate that dumpling mix. And you want it to be able to be mostly dry and sticky. You can make it into little dough balls. So we'll be back when we incorporate this in. As you can see, this has come together into kind of a dough ball. So what I can do is I take chunks, and I'm going to make dumplings just like that. It's kind of like making it, well, for me, it's kind of like making a matzo ball, only it rises. So we're going to break this chunk down to a bunch of dumplings, and then that'll go into the stew once we're ready. Okay, well, I think this stew is about ready to have some dumplings put in it. So you can see it's thickening up from the potatoes already just a little bit, so it's not looking just like soup. And if you've lost too much liquid where you think it's going to be a problem, we can always add a little more stock. And in this case, since I made some extra, I'm looking at that and saying, well, the other vegetables are not quite covered, and we're about to add a bunch of dough in. So I'm going to put in a little bit of extra, and wow, that is still warm. Bring it to about there. Now I got to bring the heat back up to get it back to a simmer. And we're going to simmer this, leave this uncovered until it simmers. All right, we're simmering. I'm going to put this back to medium heat, and I'm just going to start putting my dumpling balls into the stew. You want to spread them all around. I prefer to like space them out like this rather than just dumping them all in on top of each other because they can stick together. And I want to get even distribution throughout the stew. It's going to end up being kind of like a lid. There we go. 2 more. 1 there. 1 over here in the middle. Now we got to cook these for 8 to 10 minutes with the about 8 minutes with the lid off. Okay, so now that this has been simmering for 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to put the lid on and just let that cook through for another 10 on low simmer. Okay, so this is now ready to go. These dumplings are finished. You know, you give them a little poke, and if they feel like they're not springing back at you, maybe you got to give them a little bit more. But this is now done, and it's been about 40 minutes total cooking time from adding the stock and the cooked chicken in. If you were with us for the making the stock, obviously that takes longer, but the actual chicken and dumplings is like a 40-minute dinner. So let's take this over to the workstation and we'll plate it up. Now this may have looked intimidating, but really when I break it down, it's not. Chopping a couple of vegetables, throwing them in, you know, making the stock was just boiling chicken and a couple of vegetables and adding a couple of spices. This is not a difficult meal, but it really comes out very well. Now you want to go down in and get some dumplings and some of all the good stuff. And of course, I got the bay leaf, which is fine because you want to get that out anyway. But portions can be whatever size you want them to be. I'm doing a small one here, but you know, believe me, you'll want more. But there, out comes the bay leaf. And I'm going to finish this with just a rain from heaven of some extra parsley. And then here you've got a good, wholesome, hearty, keep you warm in the winter kind of meal. And oh my, isn't it delightful? So I really hope you guys try this recipe. I've had enough people ask me for the recipe. Remember, the ingredients will be in the description below, as will be my Facebook page for Dave's Delightful Dishes and my Instagram. And you can always, if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe, and maybe ring that bell so you'll know when I'm adding new things. And as always, let me know what you'd like to see next, because that's how this all works. And I can take a look in the future because I am starting to put together a Patreon to help pay for all these groceries. But until I see you next, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you at the next recipe.